All right. I know you guys are terribly disappointed that you're not going to be able to have your quiz today, but hey, due to some extenuating circumstances, being that my daughter got sick, I am having to stay home with her today and care for her, so I am being Mr. Mom right now. So what we're doing is we're progressing with our next homework, or our next lesson, and I'm going to try to present that here. I want you taking notes on it. I want you to have stuff to show the sub so you can get credit for today's work. So what we're going to be talking about today is what's called the triangle mid-segment theorem, and what that is this. The mid-segment is the segment that joins two midpoints of two sides of a triangle. And there's a special relationship with this mid-segment and this non-intersected segment down here, and we're going to take a look at that relationship here. Now, in order for you to understand what that relationship is, I'm going to be doing what's called a coordinate proof. We are going to be doing this later on this year, and if you are, I know some of you guys have really struggled with the concept of a proof thus far, but when it comes to a coordinate proof, if you like algebra, if you understand the coordinate plane really well, then you should be pretty good at doing the coordinate proof. So let me walk you through that real quickly here. What I've done is I've identified point A at the origin is 0, 0. And then I've identified two other points, point B and point C. B is in the first quadrant, C is on the x-axis. I've just given them two random ordered pairs. You'll notice here I am using variables because that's why it's able to be an algebraic proof. Now, with those ordered pairs, I wanted to find the midpoint of the two sides of the triangle. So if you look down here, again, it's a proof. You have to show all of your steps in order to explain how you got what you got. So I went ahead and plugged in the ordered pairs to the midpoint formula. And so as you look here, x sub 2 plus x sub 1 over 2, and then we have y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2. So I showed that down here. And then 2a plus 0 is just 2a. Divide by 2, you get a. 4b plus 0 over 2 gives you just 4b over 2, which is actually 2b. And so you can look here. AB, the midpoint, is going to be point D. I labeled it point D, A, 2B. BC, I went ahead and did the midpoint formula. So I think I did x sub 2 plus x sub 1 over 2, and then y sub 2 plus y sub 1 over 2. Now this will give you 8a over 2, which is 4a, and then 4b over 2, which is 2b. So we found our ordered pairs there of the midpoints, points D and point E. Now for the slope, there's a relationship amongst the slope of these two lines here, and so let me actually go up here. Oh, can't get it? There you go. Okay. If you look, the slope of, let's say, AC here, I'm going to take y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And so as we look down at that formula here, you'll notice, again, 0 minus 0, this should be AC, by the way, over 6a minus 0. So 0 over 6a, 0 over anything is going to be 0, and I simplified it down to 0. Now for DE, y sub 2 minus y sub 1 over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. And so as we look at that down here, 2b minus 2b is 0, 4a minus a is 3a. 0 over 3a gives you 0. And so the mid-segment is always parallel to the non-intersected segment. So as we look up there, this segment is always parallel to this non-intersected segment down here, every single time. Now, for the, I don't know why that happened. Oh boy. Let's go ahead and try this. Loving technology right now. Okay. Now for the other characteristic of the mid-segment and the non-intersected segment, I want to look at the length of the sides. And so I used the distance formula. Now again, I miswrote this. AC, the length of AC, we're going to go ahead and take x sub 2 minus x sub 1 over squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So 6a minus 0 squared plus 0 minus 0 squared. That should be a squared right there. Simplifies down to just 6a squared. Now we know from there that 6a squared is actually 6a times 6a, or 36a squared. And I went ahead and simplified this so that we could actually see if we could simplify this radical. If you remember when we simplified radicals at the beginning of the year, whenever we have a duplicate, it comes out just as 1. So 36 comes out just as 6, and a squared just comes out as a, and so we end up having 6a for the length of AC. Now for DE, I took x sub 2 minus x sub 1 and y sub 2 minus y sub 1 and squared those and added them together. So if you look down here, here's what we have. 2b minus 2b is 0, so that's completely gone. 4a minus a is 3a. We're going to square that, be 9a squared. Now, if I simplify 9 to be just 3 times 3 and a squared to be a times a, the square root of 3 times 3 is just 3. Remember, a duplicate comes out just as 1. A times a comes out just as a, and so the length of DE is actually just 3a that you see down there. Now, if AC is 6a and DE is 3a, how many times larger is AC than DE? It's going to be twice as much. So this mid-segment, if I double it, will always equal the non-intersected segment. So over here I wrote this down, and this is incorrect. This should be the non-intersected segment. So the non-intersected segment is always twice as long as the mid-segment. Okay? So again, parallel to, and this segment, if I double it, I get this one. If I take half of this, I get this one. Okay? So with that being said, let's take a look up here at some of these problems. Let me go ahead and get rid of this here. If you have HK and you want to find out FG, notice FG is definitely longer, so the relationship is going to be twice as long. So if HK is 40, FG will be 80, and we see that right there. Now, if we're going from, this was the mid-segment to the non-intersected segment, if we go from the non-intersected segment to the mid-segment, I want to take half of that. I don't want to double it, I want to take half of it. So 100 divided by 2 gives us 50, and HJ is 50. Doing the same thing over here with EF. EF divided by 2 will be KJ, so KJ is 30. Okay? Now, the other thing I want to make sure we remember, or I remind you, is this. When lines are parallel, there's relationships of angles that we need to remember. So here we have angle VUZ. That angle measurement right there is going to be equal to this angle measurement at X. So we have two angles that are corresponding angles to each other, and when lines are parallel, they're congruent. So if lines are parallel and corresponding angles are congruent. Don't forget that. The other one, angle VUX, how do we find that one? That's this angle right here. Well, these two angles are same side interiors, so they're going to be supplementary because the lines are parallel. So if lines are parallel, then the same side interior angles are supplementary. All right, now the last problem I want to go over with you guys is this one right here. Find the variables in each diagram. The perimeter of triangle ABC is going to be 32 centimeters. I need you to find the length of n. Now, in order to find the length of n, I need you to understand that this segment here is half of this one here. And this segment here is half of this one, and this segment here was half of this one. So therefore, if the perimeter of the big triangle is 32, then the perimeter of the small triangle would have to be half as much, 16. So I went ahead and wrote out that equation down there. Now I know some of you don't like fractions, so I solved it in two different ways. One was to go ahead and convert everything to a fraction. Okay, 1 is the same as 8/8, 7/8, and then half would be 4/8. And if we add those together, that would be 19 over 8, n equals 16. If you divide through by 19/8, you get n is approximately 6.7, or 6 and 14/19. Now the other way to do this, when you don't have, nearly as many fractions, is to actually go ahead and figure out what the other segment's going to be. So if this is n, this segment will be 2n. This is a half n, this segment will be 1n. And if this segment is 7/8 n, this will be 14/8 n, which converts down to 1 3/4 n. So as you look here, I think most of you would prefer to write it out like this. And if you combine all the like terms, 4 3/4 n equals 32. Divide by 4 3/4, you get 6 14/19, or 6.7 again. Again, it doesn't matter which equation you use, they're both the same thing. We're just looking at it from different perspectives. All right, well, I hope that was a clear enough explanation. If you have any questions, you'll have to save them for, you could talk to a neighbor if you want to get clarification, but I will be back tomorrow, and we will have our quiz tomorrow. I would like you to fill out the rest of the worksheet there. I think you have a total of 5 more problems. When you're done with that, please show your work to the sub for credit. Thank you for being an attentive audience, and I look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.